Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Glad to be here with you today on this Total Wellness Tuesday episode, where we are going to be breaking down the connection between the immune system and intestinal permeability or leaky gut. So we'll be talking about autoimmunity, and we'll be going deep into 5 causal factors for increased intestinal permeability. Now, as you hear me go through the show today, I'm going to give you the direct correlations as to why this happens and, of course, how we can reverse engineer it in order to get at that root cause. So what I want to share with you right now is that there are different terms for leaky gut. I'll explain what that means. And typically in conventional medicine, we refer to it as increased intestinal permeability. And the reason that is that inside of your intestinal-based tract, you have about 26 feet, 27, 28 feet of intestinal tract, about 21 to 23 feet of small intestine, and about 5 feet to 6 feet of large intestine. Okay, in that small intestine, for the most part, we have some permeability. That means that there's a single cell, essentially, that separates the casing of the intestines from the bloodstream or the We'll put it that way. Since I look at all the way from the esophagus where we swallow to our stomach, then into the small intestine, then into the large intestine, and then out of our body through the anus where you have a bowel movement and you get rid of all that bacteria. So that essentially is meant to be the outside of your body. This is extremely important. This is one of the biggest tips I can give you. That is meant to be the outside of your body. You swallow food, it goes through the esophagus, that's a tube. It goes in the stomach, that's kind of like a balloon, and then it moves through the next tube, which is your small intestine. Little thinner, but a lot longer, about 21 feet or so. And then we have the large intestine, about 5 feet, 6 feet or so, and that's a little bit thicker. Now, small intestine, more absorption is going to take place. The large intestine, we have more bacteria, and that's basically getting the stool ready to be removed from the body. So when all of that process is taking place, it's actually meant to be outside of your body. And it is. It's actually a tube inside of your body, if you want to think of it as a pipe. And only the good stuff, all of the nutrients are meant to get into your body, but the bad stuff is not. And inside of the tubes, we make B vitamins, we make vitamin K, there's certain types of good bacteria, certain types of more negative-based bacteria, and they're all meant to work together, almost like a little garden inside of your body where it's manufacturing certain amino acids, it's manufacturing certain vitamins, it is making neurotransmitters that make us feel good and happy, like serotonin. So all of this is extremely important, and it's happening without us even really thinking about it. Now, again, what happens when things start to go wrong is when that outside of the body starts to let stuff into the body before it's supposed to. And that is what we call increased intestinal permeability, because there are already little gaps built in, right? So it's called the intestinal lumen. Just think of the lumen as the single cell wall. What goes on with the villi, you might have heard of that. It's like a little shag carpet, it looks like, and that's all the finger-like structures inside and on top of the intestinal base wall. And then there's the microvilli, and we refer to those as enterocytes. Short-lived, help to break foods down, help to manufacture some of those vitamins, and of course absorb nutrients. Now, those nutrients then can flow through the gut wall into the bloodstream, and then they can be transported to the liver or wherever they are needed, essentially, to help rebuild the body, right? The body breaks down, the body eats food, and it rebuilds itself. And that's obviously grossly oversimplified, but that's essentially how the body works. And then if anything escapes through that gut wall that shouldn't have been there, whether it's bacteria, whether it's some type of toxin from the body, well, the immune system then naturally just begins to engulf that. It marks it, it breaks it down, and it removes it from the body. That's totally normal. That's exactly how things are supposed to work. The problem is, over time, and I'm not going to go through all of the different factors for intestinal permeability. I've done that on a previous show, and what I'm going to do is link that show up at stephencabral.com/1642. So if you're new to intestinal permeability, you don't know all the different reasons as to why intestinal permeability increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut happens, please go back. I'll link it up. I'll embed the show. My team will embed the show. My amazing team will embed the show that makes all of this happen behind the scenes at stephencabral.com/1642. And of course, you can go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, and you can actually just click on the How to Fix Your Digestion. And I have a bunch of podcasts all about candida overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, parasites, H. pylori, you name it, different protocols. Check out those shows if you'd like. So what I want to share with you today, though, is we know that intestinal permeability happens. Conventional medicine is just catching on to this, although they do agree. I mean, when you see major universities saying, okay, yeah, this is true, okay, what do we do about it? The problem is, your medical doctor, conventional medicine doctor, this is not what they specialize in. When I say these things, it doesn't mean that your medical doctor is not brilliant. It doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing in terms of nutrition and gut function and the food you should eat and lifestyle. They're not trained in lifestyle medicine. And we know that it's lifestyle medicine that either keeps us well or makes us unwell. There's no other way around that. That's the truth. People want to blame things on genetics. That's an easy cop-out. It really is. Yes, genetics play a huge factor. I got sick in the most part. I had the genetic predisposition to those things. But I didn't get sick because of my genetics. The way I got sick was based on my genetics, right? Just like the way you get sick might be based on your genetics, right? There's 80 different types of autoimmune-based issues, all right? So many different types of autoimmune issues. About 10% of the population suffers from autoimmune issues. And I think that's actually a very low number. And I think that's a very, very low number. But you know what? I always go by the science and I go by the stats. So I want to share that with you. However, I'd love to share with you also why the science conventional medicine is oftentimes wrong. And it's because in conventional medicine, in modern day science, we're so quick to think that we are so brilliant, that we just know so much more than people that were around 1,000 years ago or so. But you have to understand, traditional naturopaths, Ayurvedic doctors, traditional Chinese medicine doctors, Greek-based medical doctors, looked at things from a truly holistic standpoint. They had a term back in obviously they knew about this in Ayurvedic medicine, so don't get me wrong, that came first. But in Greek medicine, which is very clearly outlined, they had a specific dis-ease of the body. Not a disease. We're not, again, on this podcast, we're not diagnosing diseases, right? We're not giving you medical treatment protocols. We're not giving you medical cures. That is reserved for the realm of the FDA and conventional medicine. We talk about underlying root causes. We talk about lifestyle-based medicine. We talk about integrative health, true integrative health, not biological hormone replacement, not all of that. Nothing, time and a place for everything, right? But that's not integrative health. That's green medicine, right? That's just taking this medicine or vitamin and replacing it for this drug. That is not natural health. Please. And again, I apologize if I'm offending anyone. I really do. I don't mean to. But if you're a practitioner and you're replacing a vitamin or a hormone for a drug, that's not practicing functional medicine. It's really not. I know that's what functional medicine is turning into, but it's not, right? We need to go back to traditional naturopathy. We need to go back to Ayurvedic medicine. We need to go back to orthomolecular medicine. It kind of walks the line, right? Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. So when you look at the Greek medicine texts, I'm sure not too many people are sitting around looking at Greek medical texts, but I'm one of those strange individuals, and I love reading about all the different brilliant people that came before us. And so I read about it. And they had a dis-ease of the body called hypochondriasis. Okay, hypochondriasis. And it was in the hypochondrium. And essentially what Greek-based medicine was talking about is that most disease originated in the stomach, or it's kind of roughly translated. It really means the gut, right? It means the stomach, the digestion is really what they meant. It didn't mean the stomach per se, but it meant with digestion. And so now medical science thinks that this is obviously quackery. Like, oh, these people are quacks and all of it. I mean, another day I'll go through the origins of quackery, but here's the origins of a hypochondriac. Medicine comes along, and scientific medicine, they look under a microscope and they're like, oh, all of this stuff with dis-ease originated in the gut. They have no idea what they're talking about. We can see under this microscope clearly bacteria in the blood. We can see viruses. We can see parasites. We can see all these different things, right? So they say, anybody who thinks that this is just happening in their gut, they're a hypochondriac. That's actually where the name came from. hypochondriasis and hypochondrium. Now, here's the issue. Just over the past 15 years, modern medical science has actually said, wait a minute. Oh, actually, we may have been too quick to dismiss this. They'll never say they're wrong, right? They'll never say they're wrong. They'll basically say, well, we're right, and okay, maybe they're right too, right? They'll never say that they weren't. But when we look at it and we can see that much of the origins of an imbalanced immune system happens in the gut, we can say maybe there was something to this Ayurvedic medicine, this Greek-based medicine, right? Of course, we know that now. So now this whole term for being a hypochondriac, well, we look at it as someone who's just always worried about their health. But they actually meant it as a derogatory term for someone in natural health looking at their gut. And that's why when, someone tries to knock down a colleague of mine or even a medical doctor, with all the viral-based stuff going on right now, I know there's one particular medical doctor, maybe you've heard about them as well, that they're really just slandering. They're saying this person doesn't really have a practice, they're not really a physician, they're a pediatrician. I'm like, well, since when isn't a pediatrician a physician? Of course they're a physician. And they'll do anything they can in the media to slander someone. But when you see that, honestly, this is how I look at it now, because I've been doing this for a bit. That person's onto something. That's the truth. There's a medical drug right now that they're saying that you can't use. Have you ever heard of this before? A drug being banned from hospital use and doctors using it. It's unbelievable. It's the doctor's decision whether they should use it or not, but it's being banned. Whenever I see that, I say, there's something to that. There's something to that for there to be at that level, right? This goes, because again, everything's about private money, it's about profit, it's about politics, it's about all of that stuff. I don't play that at all. Always people over profit, always. That's why I can run some pretty big things right now, right? We have a pretty large global integrative health-based practice. Every night, I sleep really well because all I try to do is do right by people. These other companies, I don't know how they sleep at night. But anyway, I'm beginning to digress again. So I want to share with you right now, though, get back on track, because I'm literally reading all of this different research, right? I go through research every single day. I read books every day. I read research every day. I dedicate a part of my day to that. And I want to keep up, but I never want to forget where I came from. And that means from the Ayurvedic medicine, the traditional Chinese medicine, Greek-based medicine, Eastern-based philosophy, traditional naturopathy, et cetera, right? And yes, of course, I combine that with state-of-the-art functional medicine, naturopathic, et cetera. Okay, well, let's get down to it. When we look at an immune imbalance, not every time, but much of the time, and you can read about this, I talked about in the rain barrel effect, there are 10 major toxins that our bodies are exposed to. Any one of those could cause an immune imbalance. But you'll see, it might not be the first causal, but in 90% of immune imbalances, big immune imbalances, you're looking at intestinal permeability. So just to recap, when the outside of your body, that tube from your mouth all the way out through the anus, when that becomes more permeable, when those cells, the division between the cells, the space between the single cell lining of your gut wall becomes wider, it begins to allow out bacteria, toxins, different types of food particles, meaning like larger amino acid strands, and all of these things are picked up by the immune system. Now, picture 4,000 square feet of gut wall. That's how big your gut wall is. Think of it this way. If you were to take out your intestines and you were to flatten out the intestines and the villi and the microvilli, they would cover a tennis court. Think about that. Inside of your body, if you were flattened all of that out, it would cover a tennis court. It's unbelievable. And we have more bacteria in our gut than we have cells in our body. That means there's more bacteria in our gut than there are human cells in our body. And when we look at the surface area alone, if that becomes more permeable and things that are escaping that shouldn't be escaping, that are meant to stay in the outside of our body, what do you think that does to our immune system? Well, it begins to what? Turn it on to a greater degree. Now, I hope that you can begin to see how immune balances happen. Remember, on the podcast, I always tell you this. Everything has an answer. Everything. Every health issue has an underlying root cause. Every disease name that we give people is simply a collection of symptoms. There is no disease. I know when people hear that, they say, this is unbelievable. How could someone say that? It's because yes, you have the symptoms of your disease. I don't disagree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you there. What I'm saying is the name of your disease is a collection of symptoms. Those symptoms are how we differentiate from the other immune imbalance disease, right? And then what do? Well, we mark down an ICD-4 code, whatever it might be. We prescribe a medication, and you're on your way. But really, how did you get there? Can we reverse engineer this? If we are not looking at gut permeability, it's called increased intestinal permeability. That's the scientific name. You can call it leaky gut. To me, it's all semantics. I don't care what people call things. Call it adrenal fatigue if you want. I don't mind. Other people call it HPA axis dysfunction. If someone has an issue with you calling it adrenal fatigue, then they just have too big of an ego. That's just the way that it is, right? So anyway, I'm trying to get rid of the ego in medicine. I really am. I'm trying to break that down and say, like, I don't care what your pedigree is for where you went to school. Do you have the knowledge base, right? You can have 0 certifications. If you know what you're talking about, you know what you're talking about, and I love that. So that's why, again, we need to keep preaching this. Everybody needs to be preaching this. So here's the 5 factors, because I know I've been going on, but it's really important that you understand. As you make that gut more permeable, you turn the immune system on. And if you're turning the immune system on, fine if it's every once in a while. But if every time you eat, the immune system gets turned on, think about why some people feel better fasting. Of course, the immune system doesn't get turned on as often. But here's the issue with that. This is the issue. That's not the way out. That's a Band-Aid-based approach. You can't eat once a day. You're going to eat once a day? Think about what that's going to do to your metabolism, right? Oh, you can't eat carbohydrates because then you start to feel joint pain and inflammation? It's not the carbohydrates' fault, right? You have something wrong with your gut. We've spoken about that before. So again, check out my podcast on the carnivore-based diet. You have to understand is there's a time and place for everything, but a lot of things that we're doing right now is just green-based medicine. It's not actually getting at the root cause. So let's go over those 5 causal factors right now. And just remember, the way that your immune system gets turned on, the disease name that you're given, yes, is then based on your genetics. Some people are going to be what's called Th1 dominant, other people Th2 dominant. You can check out my previous podcast on Th1 and Th2 immunity on a different show. So that's when genetic matters, okay? So genetics matter, but it's not necessarily, oh, you do this for this autoimmune, you do this for that autoimmune. I'm purposely not giving out a name of an autoimmune issue because then people think I'm only talking about that one. What you do is you go deeper to the root cause. You don't just try to squelch inflammation. Inflammation's a part of the immune system being turned on, right? Whenever the immune system gets turned on to a high degree, you have inflammation. That's just the way that it works. Higher immunity, more inflammation. That is how it works. So now we need to say, why is the immune system turned on to such a great degree? It has to do with toxicity at some level. Could be heavy metals, but today we're talking about the gut. Okay, we'll talk about heavy metals on a different show. So I want you to look at these 5 factors when you're looking at gut-based issues and intestinal permeability. Check out all the reasons why gut permeability happens, but these are 5 big factors for an autoimmune issue tied to increased intestinal permeability. The first one is this, food sensitivities, all right? There are so many people walking around with a gluten-based sensitivity, a dairy-based sensitivity, or an egg-based sensitivity, okay? Now, there are many other ones besides that, but you have to understand those are the most 3 common. Now, people say, well, I eat them and I don't get any bloating. I don't get any gas. And I say, I don't disagree with you. You very well may not. And that might be because you don't have an IgE sensitivity to that food. But you very well may have an IgG sensitivity to the food. The difference is one happens right after you eat it. The other one happens a day, 2, or 3 days later. And what does it look like? Well, it looks like inflammation. Turns on the immune system. And then it looks like whatever dis-ease you are suffering from. So I've seen people sensitive like myself to almonds and chicken, which is so random. But I was. And kidney beans. I didn't even eat kidney beans, but I have a high IgG sensitivity to them. My body, not an advocate, not a fan of kidney beans. That's just the way that it is. And I'm okay without eating them. I'm also okay without eating almonds. I can get by. I can eat macadamia nuts. I can eat pumpkin seeds. Like there are other things that I can eat. I'm okay with that. But when I eliminated those, I realized, that started to empty the rain barrel a little bit. Wow, I do have a little less inflammation. My thumbs do hurt just a little bit less. My elbows do hurt just a little bit less. I have a little less brain fog, right? So food sensitivities are a big one. Alcohol, I wasn't even going to name this one, but I feel like I have to. And I know that it's so unpopular to talk about this and say that, but you have to understand, if you have an autoimmune issue and you're drinking alcohol, you're just adding fuel to the fire, because alcohol does create greater intestinal permeability. I'm not going to talk a lot about it today, but I just want you to know that, okay? All right, number 2 is this. Candida overgrowth or yeast overgrowth. Spoke about this, let's see, where did I talk about this? Last Tuesday, episode 1635. So when you have a fungal overgrowth, do keep in mind that Candida is called a pseudohyphae. That means that it does have roots. It is possible that they go through the intestinal wall. We don't truly know for sure, but what we do know is that when Candida begins to overgrow, the immune system also can become more active. That's a problem. We also can see cousins of yeast, which is the fungal overgrowth we are talking about, but also mold. That also increases the immune system on one side and actually blunts it on another. That is why I'm going to give you, I'll give you the lab test at the end, right? I'll give you that at the end. So important to look for Candida or yeast overgrowth as a exacerbator of immune function, as well as a potentiator for causing increased intestinal permeability. The third one is this, and I podcast on all of these, so yes, I'm going through the list, but I have a podcast on each one because all of them deserve their own topic. Bacterial overgrowth. When you have excess bacterial overgrowth, let's call it small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you have immune cells going into the intestines, because your immune cells some of them can actually travel into your gut wall, and they begin to attack the bacteria, or fermenting-based bacteria, or fermenting food, and cause inflammation. That's what immune cells are there to do. They're there to clean up. But in the cleanup, there's a little battle, and that battle causes inflammation. And also, bacterial overgrowth is typically a subsequent effect of alcohol, eating a lot of processed foods, taking antibiotics, etc. Again, I've done another show on all the things that cause an imbalanced gut. So bacterial overgrowth can exacerbate the immune system. It can also latch on to certain endotoxins or toxins made within inside the body. Some of those called lipopolysaccharides. It can attach and bind itself to saturated fats, move them through the gut wall, and cause a lot of inflammatory-based damage, free radical damage inside of the body. The fourth one is this. Some people are naturally more sensitive to nightshades, salicylates, oxalates, and sometimes even lectins. Now, I have done particular shows on this before. Most people can overcome all of those things by rebalancing their gut, especially lectins. I talked about that. I did a podcast on the plant paradox book and all of those different things. Again, I think Dr. Gundry and all these people are great. What I wanted to share with you is another side to it. It's like you don't need to live with this forever. You might be sensitive in the beginning. Now, you might always be a little bit more sensitive. So, for example, I'm just going to be honest with you. Growing up, I took antibiotics probably 5-6 times a year. That's just what our physician did, our pediatrician did. I mean, we're not medical doctors. My parents aren't medical doctors. That's what they say to do. You do it, right? I had tubes in my ears. I had adenoids taken out, tonsils taken out. I had allergies. I had all these issues, right? And then when I was 14, I was put on 3 straight years of antibiotics. I swallowed over 3,000 capsules of amoxicillin in my life, right? I was put on Prilosec. I was put on all these different things. My gut, for sure, is more sensitive, most likely, even though my digestive system's great, I feel good. I can't overdo a lot of these nightshades, for example. That's a good one for me to mention. I stay away from nightshades for the most part. I'm good if I have them at one meal, but if I were to eat them for 3 days in a row, I don't do as well, right? So check out another show. If you don't know what nightshades are, you can check that out. But I can eliminate those, and it's not a big deal. Do I need to eat eggplant? No, I'm okay with not eating eggplant, right? I'm okay with that. So the fifth one and last one is this, and is probably the most important. Stress. Stress not only by itself can cause leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. By itself, it can cause it without any other differences with food. You could be eating the best diet in the world. Honestly, you could be eating the best diet in the world. If you are highly stressed, it will cause increased intestinal permeability in many people. Now, stress in and of itself can imbalance the immune system without even touching the gut. So keep in mind, when you are stressed, certain parts of the immune system actually become suppressed when chronically stressed, right? And most people aren't stressed just for a couple minutes, right? They're stressed for days and weeks and months. And that begins to seriously imbalance our immune system. So if you are dealing with an autoimmune issue, if you're dealing with an immune imbalance, I can't recommend you enough to look at the connection with your gut and the connection with stress. There is a certain set of labs that I recommend. They're called the Big 5 labs. We use them in our private practice, and I've been doing so for a good decade. You can run them with our team at equilibriumnutrition.com. You can run them with a local or virtual integrative health practitioner. You can run them with your local naturopathic doctor. Whatever you choose to do, it's my job to provide you with the information. Then I want you to do with it as you see fit and however you see fit. You can work with our team or you can work with someone else. I just want you to know that these things are available. This is how I got well. This is how the people in our practice rebalance their body, right? Get to the root cause and figure things out. You can test your food sensitivities. You can look for the candida overgrowth. You can look for the bacterial overgrowth. You can assess your stress with the stress hormone, mood, and metabolism test. You can get to the bottom of things. You really can. This information is available to you. By doing that, you combine the best of state-of-the-art medicine with the best of ancient-based wisdom, as long as your practitioner knows how to do those things, right? So, again, you can go to equilibriumnutrition.com and just type in Big 5. You'll see the Big 5 labs. Just know what they are. Just look over them. You don't even have to run all 5. Maybe you just run the Candida, metabolic, and vitamins test. Maybe you just run that one lab, right? But I want you to know that these things are available. That's all. I just want you to know that they're out there. And when the time is right for you, you can begin to truly get at that underlying root cause of what's going on. So hopefully this show was helpful today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.